he's just still trying to get the.
I assume so, or,
Oh, there we go.
okay, ready.
All right, they say we're ready. We're recording. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lessard-Sams Council meeting. As I said, this is being recorded October 3rd, 2024. You're wondering where our chair, Mr. Hartwell, is. He's overseas, and but he's on with us on the internet, and will be taking some of this meeting as I substitute for him, probably inadequately today. But anyway, we're going to start with a roll call. If we can start the roll call. Tom?
Hartwell.
I'm here.
Hartwell present. Shara.
Here.
Shara present. Baird.
Here.
Baird present. Representative Burkle.
Burkle present.
Burkle present. Edmondson. Eggerling.
Here.
Eggerling present. Senator Herr. Holston.
Here.
Holston present. Senator Lang. Representative Lilly. Saxhog.
Here.
Saxhog present. Swenson.
Here.
Swenson present. Mr. Chair, there is a quorum.
Great.
Thank you very much, 8 of us. I need to, for those of you to review, and I need a motion to approve today's agenda. Can we get a?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So moved by Mr. Saxhog. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, we got all. Last meeting's minutes, review and approve. Need a motion.
I'll make that motion. Eggerling.
Motion made to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed. Very good.
Aye.
Thank you. Some of the votes are coming in late. Anyway, any conflicts to report? Conflicts of interest to report today? Anybody? Very good. Chair's comments. David, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I don't think I have anything to add. Mark is going to say something about the prevailing wage meeting we had. And that's the only thing that I would report on, but I'll let Mark do that.
All right, very good. That brings us to the executive director's report. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, good morning. Nice to see you all. Just a few things on my report for you, so I'll make it quite quick. Back on September 10th, David had mentioned that we had a meeting on prevailing wage. Chair Hartwell, Joe Pavelko, and myself were able to join the staff from the Department of Labor Industries as well as DNR and multiple of our OHF recipient groups for a meeting to talk about prevailing wage. It was a pretty productive meeting. The takeaway of the meeting was pretty much that the groups would create, the groups in DNR would create a collaborative list of their natural resource jobs that they hire for, as well as descriptions of those jobs. And the groups got that done within about a day and a half and got it to DNR. DNR then added to that list and all of the other jobs that they also had and other descriptions and so on that they hire for. And then they sent that collaborative list to DLI. I understand that DLI has had that list now for a couple of weeks or so, and they should be soon getting it back to the groups. DLI's job with the list then was to take a look at those job descriptions and job listings and decide how they could apply the current job codes to those, what would be appropriate for all the groups. So that's some real necessary direction that will be provided by DLI to DNR and the groups. And but I understand it's going well, and they're just waiting for that next step right now. No, I guess we'll find out as things happen, but we expect some things shortly to continue and for that all to wrap up. A couple of other things I have, kind of a for the record reminder for our program managers. At the November 19th meeting, that's when the council will take up any amendments or requests for extension to appropriations, to previous appropriations. We have to do that in November, so it gives us time to get for the council to discuss it and approve or not approve, and then any approvals to go into the bill for this legislative session coming up. So if there are any program managers out there that have questions, please contact LSOHC staff with your questions, and we'll work it from there. And then also kind of a last minute reminder, a last chance reminder for the council, we have a tour of the St. Louis River Estuary that is scheduled currently for Tuesday, the 8th of October. And I know that so far we have the Kristen, members Eggerling and Baird and Lang are going to be attending, along with 3 of us staff. Sandy's going to be on vacation, lucky bug. And but if you're going to be coming, if any of the other members want to attend, please let us know, because we have to make sure we have room on the pontoon so we can, because we do have to have a boat rental to get us around to take a look at that. It's not a public tour. This is for the tour. For the council with the DNR and I believe maybe Fish and Wildlife Service or somebody up there. But anyway, the natural resource specialists that are working that program. If you want to come, please let Joe or one of the staff know, myself, Sandy, Tom, one of us, so we can give you the details. And Mr. Chair, I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our first presentation this morning, some of you will remember the council made a pretty substantial investment in controlling invasive carp in Minnesota. And so we were scheduled for an update here. Are our presenters here? Very good.
May I add, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, members, just to remind you too, Ron did a good job of mentioning that this is kind of the council's request to get updates on the invasive carp and on the dam removal and that whole project. We're looking at doing that probably on a quarterly basis. So it'll be now, this is the very first one. So it's kind of, don't expect tremendous advances. The dam is, everything's going on. But Kelly Pennington will give us an update, and then we'll probably hear again from Kelly in January before the council then arrests for the legislative sessions. Kelly.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and members. I'm here to give an update on this project. We were last here on July 30th to provide an update. Since then, we've continued to meet regularly with our agency partners. Again, those agency partners include the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Wisconsin DNR. Their expertise and the time that they've given to this project has really already been critical at making the advances that we have. We can go to the next slide, thanks. So we are still in the scoping phase of the timeline that we talked about at the last update, but some of the things that we've accomplished as a project team in that scoping phase are to establish the roles and responsibilities of the agencies on the project team. We've worked to identify the essential criteria for a lock deterrent that will help us define the design that we'll need at this site. We've identified some of the data needs that we'll need to inform a deterrent design. For example, things like bathymetry, the substrate, the soundscape, and flow measurements around the site are going to be needed to really understand what design will work best there. We've identified the monitoring needs for supporting effectiveness of the deterrent, such as tracking fish movement around the site. We're also working together to identify the permits, approvals, and any environmental review that may be required for this project. And really importantly, we've shared some of the lessons learned from the 2 other sound-based experimental invasive carp deterrents that exist in the US. We're really fortunate to have people who have worked on both of those projects on our project team so that we can learn directly from what's happened at Lock and Dam 19 and at Barkley Lock and Dam, where the 2 other sound-based invasive carp deterrents are. You can go to the next slide. So just on Tuesday, we were really fortunate to be able to meet at Lock and Dam 5. Thanks so much to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for making that meeting possible. And this is just some of our project team who was able to make it on Tuesday. Again, really, really grateful for the expertise and time of all these people. But that meeting was really helpful to see the site and really understand what this system of invasive carp prevention and management would look like at Lock and Dam 5. The Corps was able to provide some feedback on some of the structural and access considerations. And then as a team, we were able to discuss where some of the components might be able to be sited, things like an equipment shed to house the electricity and things that will be needed to run this system, and where the actual lock deterrent would be sited relative to other components like the trap and sort system. Just a couple other photos. This is looking back over the lock to the dam. And again, another view towards the Wisconsin side where you can really see the scale of the challenge here, where we're trying to reduce invasive carp passage at this site. So we'll be meeting again with the project team in a couple weeks to continue to work on this. Our goal is still to have the criteria defined for what kind of a design we'll need by the end of this calendar year, according to the timeline. And that's what I have to share this morning. Thank you again for the opportunity. And if there's questions, I'm available.
Well, thank you. Any questions out there? Anybody? I have one, Kelly, or maybe two. This seems to have taken a long time. Are the carp way ahead of us?
There are carp upstream of Lock and Dam 5, but we do not think that carp are reproducing upstream of Lock and Dam 5. We think there's an opportunity to slow the spread with interventions at that site. One concern that we've discussed with the council previously is that the dam gates at this site and at all of the upper Mississippi locks and dams do open sometimes. And that is an opportunity for fish to move upstream, including native fish and invasive fish. So that's one component here, is to look for ways to slow or prevent the passage when those dam gates are open.
Okay. I have one more question. Maybe I missed it, and among your partners, is Wisconsin helping you or involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Wisconsin DNR is part of the project team.
Are they putting any dollars in there outside of their employees?
Not into this particular project, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Any questions, anybody? If not, oh, excuse me, Senator?
Thank you, Ron, Mr. Chair. Thank you for mentioning Wisconsin. I was kind of hesitate to point a finger on our neighbor, but I'm glad to hear that they're step up and be a partner in this, and want to encourage them to be as engaging as we are here in Minnesota as well. And I know we're dealing with U.S. wildlife, and so that's a national entity. So we do encourage their partnership in this. I just want to make a statement out there.
Thank you. Anybody else before we say goodbye? To Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, very
you.
much. Next update will be when? When?
January.
January, we'll get a new update.
Yep.
Bring some carp in, Kelly, we'll taste them, have a taste test. I'm sorry? All right, our next on the agenda is discussion and action on easement acquisition with partial existing protection. With Bowser. Joe, you're gonna take care of this one?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, sir, and members. So Outdoor Heritage Fund dollars, you're not allowed to use them to acquire parcels that are already protected. So Bowser is here to get permission to do that. So we have our statute subdivision 9 has requirements in there. So if you do want to acquire a parcel that is already protected. There's steps that they have to go through, and one of those steps is to get approval from the council, and you have to have 9 affirmative votes from the council. So they are here to get permission. They are seeking to put a rim easement over what's called an FMHA easement. And the way I understand the FMHA easements is those were easements that were put in place back in the farm crisis era in the 80s. And I think if the property went into foreclosure, they worked with the federal government and put it in some sort of easement, and that there is a program for them for that. Those FMHA easements vary from very restrictive to not very restrictive at all. This easement in particular is not very restrictive at all. And so we think this is a good use of outdoor heritage funds to further protect the property. So Sharon Doucette from Bowser is here to talk about the project and why they think it's a good idea to do this.
Thank you, Joe, and welcome Sharon Doucette. I got it right, thank you. It's all yours.
Morning, Chair and Council. I think Joe covered the issues pretty well, but this is a rim easement that the landowner submitted an application for our grasslands program. And as Joe mentioned, we, upon title search, did find that there was already a recorded FMHA easement. We looked at the terms of that particular FMHA easement. There were 2 easements on a larger part of the property, but the easement that applies specifically to where we are taking the rim easement allows for continued cropping, haying, grazing, normal agricultural activities. There is an additional clause that restricts building unless there is no other place on the property to build, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agrees to that structure. So basically, the easement doesn't restrict much of anything right now. So we thought that clearly a rim easement would be far more restrictive and protect the habitat value of this property on the middle fork of the Crow River. I believe that's the river. So we would like to continue with this easement. Yep, the middle fork of the Crow. So we are requesting permission from the council to use LSOHC funds from our grasslands appropriation to acquire the easement. We did speak with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who administer the FMHA easement, and they are in concurrence, and they are okay with us putting our easement over their easement. And I believe there is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff on remotely if there are any questions for them.
All right, thank you. Any questions out there? Mr. Holston?
Thank you. As I look at the acquisition map, I see it doesn't, the rim proposal doesn't include the entire property. And that's because, why?
Landowner choice. And because it is the grasslands program, and this is what the landowner wanted to enroll in the rim easement, as well as is most applicable to our grasslands program for scoring and ranking.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Susan Baird. Susan, you have your hand up?
He just, Mr. Hartwell just asked. The question was just asked, so that was exactly my question as well, was why not the whole property? So thank you.
All right. And Mr. Chair, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious if the landowner was paid for the first easement, and if you're going to pay full value for this easement in your proposal, or is there some discount for the restrictions that are already on the property?
The landowner did receive a payment for, actually it was 2 different recorded FMHA easements at the time. I do not know if it is the same landowner, but basically looking at the restrictions for this particular parcel and what the rim easement would restrict, we decided that our restrictions are very significant and very different compared to the FMHA easement. And so in our professional opinion, we thought it was appropriate to continue to pay the full value.
Any follow-up, David?
No, I just think I like the idea of the additional restrictions. It feels a little bit like double dipping to me.
Any other questions out there?
Mr. Chair,
Kristen?
have we done this before? I mean, not on this, obviously.
Well, it's a good question. I think we have, although as David mentioned, double dipping is something we refrain from doing. In this case, it seems like this is above and beyond protection for this land, and it doesn't have it right now. I don't know quite how much money we're talking about here, difference either. Anybody know that?
Thanks for that question, Chair and Council. We did run the numbers, and it was something that we discussed about a discounted rate. We do have that in place, and some mechanisms for doing a reduced payment if we feel that the current restrictions are at least taking away some of the value, or if other state funds had been used in the past. There are certain PCA easements that are slightly restrictive, but not nearly as restrictive as RIM. And so we will discount our easement payment in those cases. There are certain more restrictive U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service easements where we won't pay the landowner at all, but if it's part of a larger project, they can donate the easement to us. In this particular case, after we reviewed the restrictions, we really felt like there were not many restrictions, and a lot of the things that would happen as a part of the RIM easement were worth paying the landowner full value. If that is something that council would like us to look into further, we can certainly go back and review that again, but in our professional opinion, we really thought that the current easement was not restricting much of anything.
All right, Council, well, you heard that. Any other questions? I need a vote here, don't I, Mark?
Yep.
I need a motion. Do we want to accept the easement acquisition proposal here covering partial existing protection? Do I have a motion to that? Mark?
Sure.
Mark makes the motion. Do I need a second, right? No, don't need a second. All right, we'll take the vote. All in favor of approving this?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, has to be roll call, doesn't it? Okay, roll call.
Members starting with number 6 on our list, Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Herr.
Aye.
Senator Herr, aye. Holston.
Aye.
Holston, aye. Senator Lang. Representative Lilly. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, aye. Swenson.
Yes.
Swenson, aye. Hartwell.
Yes,
Hartwell, aye. Shara.
I'm going to vote aye, but she mentioned coming back and giving us another estimate of this. I would like to have that anyway, even though we pass this. Okay?
Shara, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle, aye. Edmondson. Mr. Chair, there is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, that's enough to pass that. So thank you very much, Sharon, for your time. All right, coming up, the big discussion of the day. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hartwell, our chair. He's on 5:30 time, wherever he's at. This is in the afternoon, so he's widely awake. David, it's all yours.
more or less. All right, thanks, Ron. Appreciate you pinch hitting, and I'm sorry I'm not there. I had this meeting written down as the 1st of October and planned my travel, assuming our meeting was the morning of the 1st and discovered I had put the meeting in my calendar in error. So I apologize for not being there in person. You were all sent the results of the cumulative allocation that everyone did. Just as a reminder, there was 400 million in requests. We have about 160 million available to us as of this moment. Ron and I took a look at the allocations and the average allocations, and for the most part, our recommendation to you, our proposal to you is using those average amounts. There were a couple of adjustments to that, which I'll go through. The first, there were 3 projects that don't appear on our proposal. The first was FA03, protecting critical habitat in northeastern Minnesota. There were just 3 members that allocated for that, for an average allocation of $176,000, which is well under our $500,000 floor, which is what where CPL ends and we kick in. The second was Carver County Carver County Land Minnewaska Regional Management Union Unit 1. The average was below the $500,000 minimum threshold. The last one was HRE 05, Lake Nakoma Shoreline Enhancements for Turtles and Pollinators. The issue we have here is this project is not scalable, and we did not feel that it made sense to increase the amount, nor did we have really the money to increase the amount above the average allocation of 583. So we did not include that in our recommendations. We looked at the other proposals that were not listed as not scalable. One was FA02, Itasca County Memorial Forest. They had indicated their project at 2.9 million was not scalable. The proposal was recommended by all 8 council members with an average of 2.36. The actual land acquisition cost is 2.7 million. We had staff go back and say to them, are you sure it's not scalable? And they have said that they will come up with everything above the 2.720, which would allow the project to purchase the land. So we've included that in our recommendation. WRE 01 East Park WMA Nelson Slough. The proposal was recommended by all 12 members with an average of 1,543,000. We heard in the hearings that the project was not scalable, but they indicated that they really could proceed with funding of $1 million of the average request or the average allocation. So we included that in our proposal. Shakopee Creek had asked for about $4 million. It was recommended by 11 members for 2.359. In the hearings, they indicated that while their application had said it was scalable, it was not scalable. They said, if we get less money, we'll just do less. So I don't know if they didn't understand scalable in their application or not, but they'd indicated it was scalable. So we included the average allocation in our recommendation to you. There were 3 projects that received more or less consent agreement by the council at our August 29th meeting. Contract management for full funding at 410, restoration evaluations at the required 0.1% of our expected revenue, or 161,000. And the roving crews, there's a balance left when we take the adjustments that I've gone through above. There was an additional 807,000, which we would add to that roving crew program. The recommendation does not include anything for the core functions, because if you'll remember that once the projects are approved by us, the accomplishment plans will come in, and the appropriate amount will be deducted from each proposal and put into the core functions proposal. So there'll be no shift in actual dollars. There will be it will come out of proposers' budgets and go into core functions. The other thing that we noticed was WRE 03 Big Swamp North, the peatland restoration project. There seemed to be a lot of question as to how to best restore the peatland. This project included two components. One was the restoration of the peatland, and one was the restoration of Badger Creek. We felt that, the funding that was the average allocation wasn't going to fund both of the projects, and we recommend the fund be used for the restoration. The funding be used for the restoration of Badger Creek, and let them do a little more work on the peatland restoration, which they seemed a little bit unsure of exactly how to do. The other one was WRE 04, accelerating shallow lakes and wetland enhancements. Average recommendation was 2.5 million. But the DNR said that they would scale personnel. They would reduce personnel from 3 to 5 years, but at the average recommendation, the majority of the funding is then for staff and not project related. Our recommendation is that we only fund the wetland program specialist and wetland program supervisor for 2 years, and all of the remaining funds go into projects, not into additional staff. The last thing is we've been asked in the past to provide guidance to the legislature if there are additional funds available in December and January. Unless we have something amazing that happens like last year, we're likely to have some additional money, but not huge windfalls. Our recommendation first, which we talked about in August, was that we fund our own budget for $730,000. The council was aware that it wasn't included in our spreadsheet, but that we would be adding it at this time. So our recommendation is to do that. We would then, if there's money beyond that, we would recommend fully funding the roving crews with another 339,000. We would then add anything above that to the CPL program at 3.6 million. They had asked for 15, and our average recommendation was 3.6 below that. And if there's money beyond that, that it just be divided to all of the projects on a pro rata basis based on the amount awarded to them, with the expectation that additional money would not go to additional staff, but would increase the amount for specific project work. And if we have another windfall, our advice is in February, as we did last year, that we again call a meeting of the council to have a discussion about what we would do with that. We don't expect it based on what we've heard so far. But rather than guess at this point on that, we felt it would make more sense to get the council back together at that time. And there's certainly time in the legislative session for us to get together and have that meeting. It would not be a formal recommendation from us that could be in the bill, but it would be a recommendation to the committees carrying the funding bill, which we have reason to believe they would listen to us. So that is our recommendation. I would be happy to take any questions, as I'm sure Ron would. And, you know, I would move this as a baseline. We certainly can adjust. This is just our recommendation based on what we saw from all of your average allocations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me add this as your vice chair. David did most of the heavy lifting here, but as we looked at it, as I looked at it, and then we talked about it, it dawned on me that what you really have in front of you is the consensus of all of us. If you're like me, there were some projects you said, oh man, I wanted more money for that. There were projects where you said, oh man, that's not enough, or that is too much money for that. And so you go back and forth, but 12 minds are better than one. And so what you have before you is a consensus of this council for the amount of money we would appropriate to each proposal. So it's, again, there's some things you're going to like, some things you don't like, but it is the consensus of this group, which I find very satisfying. Nobody gets everything they want. So I shared that with David, that as I said, sat there and said, well, I should change that, or I want to propose change, and I go, wait a minute, this is what my colleagues are saying. So we talked about it, and he just read you the differences or points we wanted to make. And so that's my speech. Any questions out there or comments? Well, okay. There was a motion. Did David make a motion?
It hasn't been, it has not been made for the record yet.
All right, we need a motion to accept the funding levels presented in the chair's proposal, subject to discussion and potential allocations in the future here when we get updates on budget, et cetera. So.
And Ron, I think we're looking for a motion that would, and I'm happy to make the motion, that we accept the chair's proposal, including all of the back and forth things that I just mentioned that are written up in the chair's proposal.
Very good. I was trying to say that. Very good.
Jamie, I see
Swenson.
you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, David. Jamie?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to go back to, let's see, is it HRE 04? And let's see if there was any further discussion we wanted to have on the staff time going to, or the funding allocated to staff time for non-LSOHC funds or projects. And if we wanted to put a caveat on that for those funds going to LSOHC projects only.
For clarity,
That is a
Member
great
Swenson, is that,
question,
do you
Jamie.
mean WRE04?
WRE 04.
Thank you.
Jamie, I share your concern there. I actually think we need to do a pretty deep dive on what is going on with this. We heard how much they need staff to get projects ready to go when they actually get the money then to do the projects. And if they didn't have the staff to design the projects, not knowing if it was going to be Lessard-Sams funded or not, or from somewhere else, if they didn't have it up front, they wouldn't be ready to go. It leaves me a little queasy. But I think we need to have a really in-depth discussion about that at an upcoming meeting. And get a really good understanding of all of the staff they have working on these projects. Mark and I tried to get information about what was already funded in staff and what wasn't, and I don't think either of us felt we got 100% of the answers that we were looking for. And so our compromise position was to limit them for the only 2 years so that we can revisit it before another proposal comes to us. And I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, but it seemed like we didn't want to hurt the projects that were in process, but we needed a much better understanding going forward of exactly what we're getting and why we are funding staff time versus project time.
Sure, and I'm probably over my waders on this one. Maybe it's a legal opinion on if that's even possible. I mean, if we had another group come in here and ask for funds for, other projects that aren't even associated with the Lessard-Sams, there's no way we would be funding, putting any allocation towards, staff time towards something else. And so that one just struck a, red flag for me. And so I wanted to see if there was any further discussion we needed to have on that, or get a legal opinion on if it's even eligible for this allocation or not.
So Ben and Janelle, I see you're both online. Maybe one or both of you can weigh in and give us your thoughts on this.
Mr. Chair, members, if the question is whether or not Lessard's or Outdoor Heritage Fund money can be used for staff costs, I think the answer is yes. I mean, the only real limitation you have on this is that the use of the money has to be used to restore, protect, and enhance wetlands, prairies, forests, and habitat for fish, game, and wildlife. And obviously that includes staff work. If you're saying, I guess if the question is, can you use that money for work by staff on projects that weren't initially funded with Outdoor Heritage Fund money? Is that the question?
Yes. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the situation is, the DNR is funding staff positions to get projects ready to go, but they don't know whether or not when those projects, number one, will go, and number two, will receive money from the Outdoor Heritage Fund or from somewhere else. So it's possible that we would be allocating money to staff time that would go to projects that get funded not to actually be completed by Lessard-Sams allocated funds.
So my initial thought would be that that's something we'd want to take a look at and come back to you on. I will say, I think if you were to use Outdoor Heritage Fund money, this is just me talking at this point, but if you were to use Outdoor Heritage Fund money as part of some kind of preparatory work for a project that then was funded with other money, not Outdoor Heritage Fund money, the fact that it was funded with some other source of money doesn't defeat the fact that it is for a permissible constitutional purpose so long as it actually gets done. If you're talking about use Outdoor Heritage Fund money for a project that may or may not be approved and in fact never gets approved through some other source, that's probably a closer question. But I think unless Ms. Taylor has something else to say, I think that's something we'd have to go back and look to try to get you an answer on where exactly that line may be.
Jamie, would you be comfortable moving this project forward as recommended, with the caveat that when we next meet, Ben and Janelle will take a close look and talk to the DNR and come back with some sort of opinion as to whether or not we're crossing any lines?
I'd be more comfortable if we just said that funding allocation to staff time on LSH LSOHC funding projects only, but if that's the, if that's the consensus, then I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, what we did here when we heard proposals is they've been doing this for a while this way. And so if we change at this point, it would be a change going forward.
It just kind of goes back to the supplanting question and, if you put a different group into the position, I think this would be easier call to make. If Ducks Unlimited or Pheasants Forever came in and said we wanted money to prepare grant applications, that's pretty clear. But yeah, let's have them come back, get a legal opinion, and come back to this one.
All right, if that's acceptable to the rest of the council, I would amend my motion to include that caveat.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, what is the caveat that we're including?
That funding for staff for this program be reviewed by our next meeting by the DNR and Ben and Janelle to make sure we're not recommending funding that would be inappropriate for the council to recommend, so that we would still have time to amend our recommendation.
Is that clear there? To me, I mean, this issue is pretty simple. DNR should not be taking some Lessard-Sams council money and using it for things not related to whatever proposal they sat here and told us about. We're not financing their budget. I mean, it's that simple in my book. All right. Have we heard the proposal, what am I trying to say? The motion? You want to repeat it again, David?
The overall motion, or just that amendment to the motion?
The overall motion.
The overall motion is to move forward and recommend funding based on the chair's proposal, with the caveat that WRE 04 staffing be reviewed by Janelle and Ben, working with the DNR to make sure that it is eligible for funding as outlined in their proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to add this. I don't know how we control this, but I'm sitting at home. I'm trying to get my own recommendations in ahead of schedule. And then I'm not assaulted, but sent all kinds of updates and memos from some of the people making their proposals, that they changed this or did this, or they want to clarify this, blah, blah, blah. I go, wait a minute, I've sent mine in already. And I kind of go, maybe you better think your proposal through a little bit more before you get up here, because it's too late to go back to some of this stuff. You might even have a good point. Obviously, nothing's ever too late, but it's like, because then that would have to come up now or later meetings. So I know we can't say stop that, but I'm not sure it's doing you any favor to, because some of the points sent to me, I said, well, you should have thought of that, Anyway, so you heard the motion. We need a second, don't we, Chair? Don't need a second.
No.
Need a roll call vote. We're ready. No more questions? Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Chair and members, starting with number 7 on our list, Senator Herr.
Yes.
Senator Herr votes aye. Holston?
Yes.
Holston, aye. Senator Lang? Representative Lilly? Saxog.
Aye.
Saxog, aye. Swenson.
Yes.
Swenson, aye. Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, aye. Shara.
Aye.
Shara, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Edmondson. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Mr. Chair, there is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
So we have a quorum.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Well, thank you, everybody. That, I lost sleep over this last night. Then we're gonna get into tearing the whole thing apart. David, you want to add anything?
No, just thank you all for all the hard work that everyone did, reading the proposals and pondering how to make a really intelligent choice. I know it is a tremendous amount of work, and I'm appreciative for the attention everyone gave it. I'm happy to see our recommendations passed unanimously by everyone in attendance. So thanks to everybody, and thanks to staff for doing really heavy lifting, reviewing the proposals and talking to proposers many times over. It feels very good to have everybody in agreement and appreciative. I'm appreciative of everybody's work. I don't believe we had any requests for public comments. Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Well, thank you, David. I echo his comments about the hard work everybody here has done, et cetera. And I understand Representative Burkle, you have something to say? Representative Burkle? Okay.
No, I'm good. Is my hand up?
Fake news.
Fake news, you're right.
There were no requests to address the council. So anybody have any more? Anyone want to praise my work here today? Anything?
I'll praise it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David.
Filling in.
With that, meeting adjourned. Use the gavel.